Hi friends, welcome to Maria's Ideas Teaches Us to Paint. If you are a returning viewer, welcome again, thank you. And if you're a new time viewer, this is my short tutorial that helps you draw the design for our volunteer show that airs on BPTV in Bethel Park in Pennsylvania. This is the design. It's the design for this painting that we created. That was episode 30 of Maria's Ideas Teaches Us to Paint. We are in the south side slopes of Pittsburgh. If you're ever in the area, look us up and stop by the studio to see us. We film this at Johno's Art Studio once a month. So we are going to paint the hiker. So this is the finished painting that we did during our episode. We film it, we paint very quickly. You can certainly take your time, and I will explain that in the video once that's I get going here, and you will see that in the video of the show. All right, so just look up episode 30. So let's see. So what we're doing is we always paint. I just have a piece of paper on here. This is a canvas panel. You can paint on canvas, you can paint on a board, you can paint on anything you choose. We usually use the 11 by 14 panels vertically or horizontally. It doesn't have as much bounce, and it just makes for a better viewing once we film our episodes. And so this is the tutorial. I'm doing it the same size as our original. You can certainly make it any size you want, and I'm going to show you how to scale it smaller or bigger by using the grid system. So if you're not familiar, I took a piece of paper and I have it the same size as the canvas. Now you could do this one of two ways. You can draw something the exact same size on a piece of paper if you want to practice a little, don't want to scribble over your canvas, and then you can trace it onto your canvas or board or whatever. This is transfer paper. Excuse the little breeze and a little bit of noise. It's so beautiful in Pittsburgh here today, and I love hearing the birds, so I have my window open. So this graphite paper, it's like carbon paper for you older folks if you happen to remember that, and you just lay it under your design, whatever you draw, and you just transfer, you draw on top either with the back of a pencil or pen or pencil. You just rub it and it transfers onto your surface. The other way that you could do this is by folding the design. So I'm going to do this, and I have this, I'll show you what I did here. So this is the design. Say I drew it on my computer, or I just had something that I wanted to transfer or design, draw on a canvas. So I'm taking the paper, folding it in half vertically, and then in half again, and then we'll do it so horizontally and vertically. All right, so you end up with 16 squares or rectangles depending on the proportions of what you're using. So you can kind of see those here. If I draw, and I'm going to take a colored pencil and just draw on those lines. They don't have to be perfect. This is just to give you a point of reference. And there's one here. And let's see, this is the center. You can certainly draw freehand. I recommend trying to draw freehand. There's no mistakes here. It should not look like mine. It's your interpretation of it. This is just a guide if you don't feel comfortable drawing it freehand. So we have our these are rectangles on our paper. If you don't have the transfer paper and then you do want to transfer onto your painting surface, what we do is you create the same number of rectangles. Now, this also works if, say, this paper was on 5 by 7. Same thing. You just do the same amount of rectangles. The exact size doesn't matter. It's the proportions that make a difference. If that was square and this is rectangle, when I do the grid, the proportions will be different. They would be squares on this one and rectangles on this one. That will not work as well. So we have our same, pretend this is our canvas. I'm just using paper just so I don't waste a good canvas just with the sketch. Okay, so now I look at my reference design, and I will start with maybe a I'll start with one of the focal points, and I'm just going to use this bit of the horizon line right here under the trees. So that is 2/3 up on this second rectangle, which is the first one, second row up. All right, so what I do is I will draw the line And this, we did actually do this from a photograph from our guest's photo when she was in, she lives part-time in Sedona, Arizona. And this is called The Hiker. Her Tom was actually the model for the painting. All right, so we have our lines here. That is the ground. We have our trees. We'll just pop this in. Now, you know, I just thought of something. Okay. We usually draw it on first. And when we paint with acrylics, typically you paint dark from the background to the foreground. When we do the show, we don't have time to do everything and let it dry. We don't have hours to let things dry. So we just paint everything. We draw it, we paint around it. We do a looser style, a more expressive type painting. But what I did for this one, I did have it, I had the canvas painted this very soft, light, peachy color just to give that the tone of the painting underneath. So if you wanted to do that ahead of time, you can paint your canvas a warm peachy tone that it just gives a nice hue to the artwork underneath all of the colors, and then you don't even have to paint as much because some of that color will come through. You don't have to do it that way. That is what we did. So if you wanted to do it that way, you would do that, let it dry, and then draw on top of that. I highly recommend when you're drawing your grid, I'm using a colored pencil and I'm doing it darker just so you could see it. I would suggest using a watercolor pencil that will melt back into your paint as it gets wet, and just do it lightly, just enough so you can see. If you use a graphite pencil, that's okay too. Again, very lightly. You could even use chalk, but then if you rub it by accident, you're going to wipe the chalk away. But just keep it very light. I'm just doing this darker just for this. All right, so we have some of these lines in. Now Tom, I'm looking at this figure. So roughly this whole shape from his hat and his head, I'm just doing a very rough suggestion of where he is on this rock. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just gives me an idea where he is. He's actually a little bit more over. This is his head is here. Okay, so I just to give me some base of where I'm going to start. Now if I look at his head here, I'll put this up here. Look at his head, and he's in it's a very simple, we're not showing even facial features or anything. It's a very simple image of him. So we have our hat. Okay, so there's his hat. And I don't worry too much about getting every detail when I'm sketching, because you do that when you're painting it. So there's his hat, all right? And then his shoulder. So you can see it's right above where these intersection with these lines. There's his one shoulder. It comes down. His hand is in shadow. That's what this dark thing is. And then we have his other shoulder, a little bit lower. And again, I just fix everything when I'm painting it. This is just to give us some guidelines as we're painting. And then his hand. So we already have that figure, okay? You can even, if you did even more rectangles, you can get even closer. You could do as many as you want. It's like, and then you kind of connect the dots. You look on that one, you look at this one, you do the same thing. I do less of them. You could just do 4 big rectangles, and that's the same thing. It's just the more rectangles or squares that you place on the reference image, the easier it will be to connect the image. Okay, so there's his legs. So don't worry about drawing. I can't draw. Yes, you can. Everybody can. And it just takes practice. It's like anything else. The more you do, the better you get. I've been painting and creating artwork professionally for 43 years as Maria's Ideas. So, you know, I've been doing something art related forever, and of course I'm going to have more experience than maybe someone who has not been doing that. So, and this is just a hint of where that rock is. Okay, and these I just do all that when we're painting. So there's our hiker. He's in there. We can adjust everything as we paint. And then the other elements are just there's a tree here. And most of the time when I paint, I don't even do this with drawing. But again, if you're not as comfortable painting, just going for it, you want to have some things drawn, just do this, work out your design with the grid, and that just helps you. All right, so we have the trees that give us our line here, and then we have the rocks start up in here, and then the rock formation. This is somewhere in Sedona. She referred to it as, my friend referred to it as the picnic area. You can change it up, you can make it any way you choose. I'm just roughly just getting the vibe of, you know, how the rock formation was. It doesn't have to be exact. This is, again, an interpretation of the photo that she showed us, that I worked from. So this represents some of the shadows and just the different areas where we might be putting in some heavier lines and colors. So that's it. Again, it's a landscape. You'll see if you watch the show, I always stress with our guests or anyone. I teach in many different areas around Pittsburgh for different corporations and schools and such. I teach for the National Aviary, South Park Elementary. I do a lot of work for the Steelers, the Penguins, PPG Paints. I always stress, whether they're children or adults, just do your thing. Make it look the way you want to. Create your own artwork. We're not worried about it matching mine. We just want to help you with the steps. So this was the finished product. So if you want, we did this, I painted this in about 30 minutes while I was talking in between. Certainly if you spend more time on something, you can get more details in, but this is just a quick expressive painting that we do. And then I also show the different tools that you need, different materials, paints. I try to keep that limited palette too, just so it's a little simpler. So I hope you'll watch the episode, and if you subscribe, that would be great. It's free to subscribe, and I hope you enjoy it and this inspires you to keep creating and painting. And like I said, stop by the studio sometime and see us. Okay, thanks.